Welcome back, everybody,
What's
to
up,
another
guys?
episode of Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes.
We're so excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting settled into our new space and yeah.
We're settling in and we're getting used to it. I guess that's the same as settling. When
Well,
I mean
kind of. I mean, I don't
used
know.
to it, I mean it's like you know when you sit on the chair and it's warm? It's kinda like that. We're getting used to like
comfortable.
Yeah,
getting snuggled in or whatever. Just like I think settling in is a little different because it's like we're settling into routines, we're building rituals, we're setting new habits.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because like an older, like if you've been somewhere for a long time, you have your set way of doing things, right? And so sometimes a fresh start can lead to fresh habits. It's like it's a new thing, it's a new fresh thing, So
different neighborhood, and I mean we're used to it. I mean we've both lived around here before,
but it's different because we're also a different time in our lives. Like I think I'm looking for different things, like different shops, different I worked in the same place when I lived here before. I was just thinking I work in a new place now, but I don't. I still work in the same place I did when we moved out of here. You did too. Anyway, we're just telling.
I'm talking about what I lived like.
Oh, when you was in your 20s.
Yeah.
Your roaring 20s. Yeah, I didn't live here in my 20s. Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Duh.
You did.
Wow. You can tell I lived a full life because I couldn't even remember.
Yeah, it was in my late 20s. I lived around here in my late 20s.
I was around here.
I'm not late 20s.
Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
We're giving up too much of our business now.
Yeah. But if you know us, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. We're grateful to have years on us, to have experience, to have, just things to be grateful for, our family and our loved ones, and we're just grateful. So, how was your week? Got him, guys. Yeah. Okay, how was your week, honey?
You always want me to go first.
I do.
And it's okay.
Yeah, I do.
I talk a lot. So, my week was actually this is I've realized some things this week. So my week was good. I'm developing some habits that I'm pretty ecstatic about. It just made me uncomfortable. But uncomfortability requires growth. So I think I've grown.
It's the other way around. Growth requires you to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. You know what I mean, guys. Listen. So I am just, looking at things from a different perspective. And it's been good. And two things I've done this week that two things that really stand out. So that's like going to the gym and reading the Bible in the morning with you are two things that they're almost habits now, which I like. It's just that I'm building something. So that's what happened this week. And I just started looking at things so I listened to a lot of interviews with different people in my downtime. Listen, I still watch funny movies and all that, but I and I still listen to sports, but I'm trying to develop this habit of listening to successful entrepreneurs and the way that they look at the world. And it's funny that a lot of it is related to what I'm doing now, which is reading the Bible. So a lot of principles fall back on there. And then I'm just realizing I'm starting to look at time differently, and my patience is a lot different. I know that I used to talk about patience, but now talking about and understanding are two different things. So now I'm starting to understand it just a little bit more. I'm not saying that I am the expert, subject matter expert. I'm just saying that I'm starting to look at it from a different perspective. And that came from, reading the Bible and then, listening to other entrepreneurs talk about the Bible, listening to, my pastor and starting to understand things that he says differently. Because we're reading the Bible, it's a difference than not reading the Bible, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
Because when I used to, I would just enjoy it, but I think God has me on this path that I want to go down of trying to be my best version of myself, and what that is for me is applying his principles and being obedient and trusting him. But it's hard, and I've realized today that I'm going to be doing that the rest of my life, battling my insecurities and ego. We talked about that.
Yes.
The rest of my life, but I'm okay with that as long as I'm getting closer, as long as I'm trusting God and being obedient. I'll be able to achieve anything that I desire within God's will. And that was my week. Just doing the little things and not worrying about the little things. So it's just a caveat. Doing the details, but not worrying about things that you can't control.
Yeah.
Because we want control, and then you have to realize we don't have it. You can't control what your coworkers do. Can't control what your job does. You can only control how you approach every day. You can't control it. So you just gotta focus on God, yourself, your family, and I think everything will take care of itself. Because then you start realizing that I can't worry about that. I have to worry about the little things. The little things is maybe, I think next week I'm going to develop, we're like 5 chapters in, and I realized this. I was telling you, I realized this, that writing down is very instrumental because I have a really good memory. But I noticed in order for me to process and learn, writing it down is a really good form. So next week, we read and I highlight, but I'm going to start really writing down and taking notes of what God's words and principles mean to me. So I can better learn it, and apply it. Because if you read something or listen to something on its surface, it's God telling you don't do this, and you be like, oh, okay, but you're not really internalizing it, or you don't really want to apply it, so you need to write it down. You gotta think, right? Be honest, you wrote notes in class, right? And if you didn't write notes, the higher that you get, right, you're going to want to write notes, because you know that if you take notes, your notes are a better way for you to learn, because it's in your interpretation of that math problem. So my notes is just my interpretation for me of how I'm understanding it, God's principles. So that's what I'm going to try to implement. And those are the little things I'm talking about. And then the other things is I can't control what my job does and how much my work is. I can only control that I'm able to do it.
Mm.
So that's it. Those are the, paying attention more to detail and little things, the daily habits, versus not paying attention to things I can't control.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to implement.
That's huge.
Next week. Slowly but surely.
Yeah. It's interesting to bring up a couple of points that about just like the small changes in the habits, and we talk about this stuff all the time. So, but I always get a different perspective every time we talk about certain things. So it's interesting because we don't have control over the larger things that we sort of like focus on sometimes. And by we, I really mean everybody, but I can't speak for everybody. But I just want to say it's easy to focus on things that, you want to be a certain way and you don't have control over. But if you're not really doing those little small things, right, then how can you take hold of your future, right? If you're not making those tiny little steps. So that's awesome. That's that's amazing. I'm proud of you. That's so awesome. Yeah. I'll talk about my week. My week was good. God is so good. I had some dentist work done early in the week, and I'm still surviving. So I'm excited. God, thank you for insurance. I thank you for health savings accounts. I thank you for, all that good stuff. So, because when you need it and you got it, it's good. It's really good. So I'm really excited about that. Everything went well. It's so funny how, all right, I gotta say this. We don't plan to say anything. We just know we're gonna talk about the verses at some point. But this is a longer intro than usual. But I do have to say, man, it's so interesting how we go around. I'll talk about myself. I go around and I say I trust God, and I do the things that people who trust God should do. But then you get to a situation and you just thinking about all of the horrible things that could happen. I'm just bringing this up because when I went to the dentist earlier this week, I was so nervous and afraid, even though it's a really good dentist. Like, this is one of the best dentists. And I mean, you can't judge by how fancy an office is, but it sure does, give you a little bit of confidence when you go into a fancy facility and you're like, okay, they have all this high tech equipment. They have,
have your tea and coffee and water.
They have all the stuff. They have TVs on the ceiling.
Come on, man.
Everybody's, everything looks really,
they're up to date.
They're up to speed with technology, right? It's just oh, this is real time. I can see my, X-rays right there on the screen. It's, it gives you a sense of security, but security is really one of those things. We were talking about that earlier this week, that kind of it's relative. You don't really know what security is, but it's not external. So you don't really have security in a job. You don't really have security of self, like safety. You really just only have security. You only have security within yourself and with God. So, but so I only was bringing that up because I just remember being on the way. When you leave out the door to go to get this actual procedure, and you're just nervous. And I didn't think I was gonna die or anything, but I had considered the number of things that could go wrong, or whether it was gonna hurt. And none of those bad things happened. And like I said, thankfully I was able to not have to worry about the monetary component of it. So everything just turned out as a blessing. But it's interesting because those things like that can test your faith. And I definitely, when my faith was tested, the test didn't come back so well, in my opinion, because I'm like, why am I even worried? If I'm really as faithful as I say that I am in God, then everything's gonna happen and everything's gonna be okay. But I mean, I'm not trying to be Moses or Jesus or nothing like that. I am trying, but I know that I'm gonna definitely fall way, way, way short of that. But it just brought me to an understanding that I have a lot of work to do, because I was like, why am I even worried about this? And that's a lot of stuff. Like, normally I'm able to like quell my anxiety with a verse or with like something like that, and then I'll just bring that up real quick. I was nervous, and right before I went in the office, James got me on the phone and was like, "Hey, I just wanted to remind you of this verse we just read." And it was like, it was out of Joshua, "Be strong and courageous." Oh man. And I was literally needing that. Like, I didn't know I needed it. When he called me, I was like, "What's up?" I was thinking something was wrong, see, with me and my non-faith. But I was thinking, like, "What's up?" And he was like, "I just wanted to call you because I know you're nervous, and I just wanted to read you this verse." And I was like, oh, and when he said it, not only did I need it at that moment and did I know I needed it, I was like, "Repeat that." And then he repeated it, and I was like, "Bet." And then I was like, "Okay." And while I was getting the procedure done, there was a couple times where I got scared, and I just repeated it right back, and it was right there on the front of my brain because he had called me right before. So I got through everything just fine, but it was just real funny how my faith was like a little shaking, because I'm like thinking about all the bad things, and really I couldn't control any of that anyway. Like, I needed to go get the thing done. I was blessed to be able to do that, and everything else was just in God's hands. And somehow my little Peasley mind just thought like my worry was going to do something for my safety or security, which is just silly. So, case in point again, how silly we are as humans. I'll be the first to stand in line and admit that. So yeah, my week went well. Blessings.
Eventful week.
Even down to just being thankful for my husband, because he is just so amazing. He went and got me all the little soft foods and stuff that I needed, and you've just been really, you're always amazing in all the different ways. Huh?
Haven't eaten any soft foods, man. I've been tempted.
Whatever. Whatever.
That applesauce and...
Anyway, I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for all, the circumstances that allowed me to be healthy. So, anyway, with that said, let us jump into our reading for this week. Now that we done took y'all down this rabbit hole, but we're just here being ourselves, and whoever gets something out of it, so glad. And again, I'll just go into what we were reading this week, which was Joshua. I think we started with Joshua 9 through 12. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, we read that last week. Okay.
Yeah.
So we read Joshua 9 through 21. Joshua 9 through 21. Yeah, so okay. Got a lot out of this. I'm gonna let James take it away. Again, just want to say, like, this platform is for us to just tell you our adventures and experiences reading the Bible and trying to apply it to our lives. And just understanding like what's in there and how it relates to our daily life, and we're definitely finding that it is. But yeah, so Joshua 9 through 21, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So 9 through 12. It was the deception of the Gibeonites, the miracle with the sun standing still, and all the kings were defeated. So let's go with the deception of the Gibeonites. That's when, they basically said, listen, they heard that Israel has been defeating all these kings, right? It's like word on the street. And they were kind of being deceptive because they didn't want to get taken over by the Israelites. So they told them that they were from a far land and that they believed in the Lord, the God of Israel, and they wanted to be, they wanted to be like with them. So what happened was, they said they're from Joshua 9, verse 9.
Yeah.
The Gibeonites said to him from a very distant, because Joshua asked, "Who are you?" And they said to him, "From a very distant country your servants have come because of the name of the Lord your God. For we heard a report of him and of all he did in Egypt." So they're saying we're from very, very far, which they were really like from across the street.
I have something to say about that, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's so funny how people lie.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they lie, and they don't know you can tell when they're lying. And I don't even think that they really knew they were lying, because I think especially back in this day, you're going to take people's word for it. You don't really know how crafty and cunning people have even become more so over the decades or the centuries, I would imagine. But anyway, it's weird to me to read this, and I guess I'm kind of cynical and skeptical or whatever, but like when they said, he said, "Where are you from?" Right? They said to Joshua, "Where are your servants? Who are you and where do you come from? Your servants have come from a country that is very far away." That just seems like a lie to me, because it's like, well, say the name of it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you meet somebody today and they're like, even if it's a small town, like, "Oh, I come from a small town in Tallahassee," or whatever it is, right? I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if it's a small town. I don't know if there's a small town in Tallahassee. I'm just saying.
It's a small town everywhere.
It's a small town everywhere, but it's like, even if you rep that small town, you're going to say the name of it. "Oh, we come from so-and-so real far away," right? Like, we're from, Baltimore or whatever, right? Like, even if you never heard of it, I'm going to say what it is. But they didn't say that, "Oh, somewhere very far away from here," like in a far away make-believe land. And it was just like, it just sounded like a lie to me. But, I'm kind of skeptical, so.
Because they didn't say it in the detail.
Yeah, it's just it's just like it's like when somebody's giving you some information that's being fed to you. Yeah. Like, how do you know what's far away from me? You don't know where I've come from, right? Like you might have heard some things about me, but you don't really know all the things that I know. Yeah. You don't know all the people I've met. So for you to say, "Oh, it's far," it's like, that's relative. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think it's far. Maybe I just came from there.
What town was it you said? Was it Tallahassee you said?
No, yeah, I was just making that up.
Right, I'm trying to think what's close to Tallahassee. Jacksonville might be close to Tallahassee.
But even here, I use Baltimore too. If somebody came up to you and was like, and maybe they're from Ellicott City, and you're like, right, and you're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And they're like, "We're from a far, far away land." Yeah. Like, it's like, well, you don't know how far I think far is. Yeah. You don't know if I've been there. You don't know if I know somebody from there. Yeah. But so for you to tell me and to feed me your thought of what my measurement is, it just seemed like a lie to me. But it was a lie. But it could just be me being skeptical, as I tend to be sometimes. So
you're trying to watch out for that scorpion, man.
Yeah, there's that. Because it's like, you got to think sometimes. And this is the discernment, like you were saying. Like, you can't just go around your whole life like this, right? Like, just being skeptical of everybody, because God's going to take control. Yeah. And as we see here, even though these people did lie, they got, you don't know also, this is a good point, you don't know also what God has planned for them. Yeah. So they were lying to try to save their lives, because they heard that the Israelites are coming and they're, they're taking bodies. Like, we might not make it if they know who we are. So they, they lied and they got away with it, because by the time they were found out, they had a covenant in place. So it's just like, well, we can't even do nothing to them now. Yeah. So, and and maybe God was saving them, right? Yeah. God was sparing them, like they did with Rahab.
Because they believed, right? So they
So I'm here. I am like trying to off with their head, and I'm not like that. But I just was thinking about that. But anyway,
that's all good. No, so then the Gibeonites came and were like, "Listen, we did deceive you. Right? We're from Baltimore. Ellicott City is right there. We're close. You know what I'm saying? We're close. Yeah. We're close, man." And in Joshua 9:12, 24, they said, because it was told to your servants of a certainty that the Lord your God has commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and destroy all the inhabitants of the land before you. And we fear greatly for our lives because you did this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now they say, we're in your hand. So they basically said, we believe you. We believe your God is.
Yeah.
Will, destroy the inhabitants. And he said, okay. You know? And he spared them and he didn't kill them. And he said, you're going to become a part of the conquest.
Yeah, gatherers of firewood and water carriers.
Yeah. So that's, So,
I mean, listen, you got to get in where you fit in. If that's how it happened, and who was that? It was Abraham who kept lying about Sarai being his sister.
Yeah, that was
right. And then it was Abram and Sarai at first, and then it became Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah.
So he kept lying, and he was lying to save his life, or so he thought. He was like, lying to spare his life, and it is what it is. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna sit here and act like I've never told a lie.
Yeah, come on, man.
So yeah. So that's what happened there. Sorry.
Then the miracle, the sun stood still. The sun stood still. Yep. So this happened when this is another miracle from God, because the Gibeonites said all the kings of Amorites were going to come, and so God said, "Don't fear, I got you." And he made the sun stand still.
This is in Joshua 10, 12.
12 and 13.
Yeah.
And it says, at the time Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day, when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel, he said in the sight of Israel, the sun stands still at Gibeon, and the moon in the valley of June. And the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation took vengeance on their enemies.
Yeah, so that was interesting, because another thing right before that I thought was really dope was it was in 10:8. So God said to Joshua, the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, because I have given them into your hand. Not one of them shall stand before you. Right? So sometimes we have this fear, like I did, right? But it wasn't an enemy. It was my own,
Could be.
It could have been. You're right. But it's like we get scared, and, I don't know if that's going to affect performance or whatever, but God is saying to Joshua here, like, don't fear them. Don't fear them, right? Like, I've got you. And then later on, he struck them with hail, right? So as the Israelites were, gonna attack these folks, in the battle, the Lord threw down large stones of hail from heaven, right? So it's like you're fighting this battle, but God is really fighting the battle, right? Like you're standing with God, but he's gonna do something to make sure. He's like, don't fear, like, we got this, like, I got you. Yeah. So I just took that so literally in my week. Yeah. And my enemy I chose this week, well, not chose, but I looked at my work as my enemy, because it can seem so overwhelming, and it seems like it takes me sometimes, like I have to fear it, that like, oh, I won't be able to get it all done. And I remember reading this verse earlier this week and thinking, like, just like the Israelites and Joshua took out all of those towns, like all of those tribes one by one, he took them out, just like lined up, and then they listed them out, and I was like, I felt like that was God telling me, like, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to line up every single project, and you're going to do them in priority order, one by one. You're going to knock this out, then you're going to knock that out, then you're going to knock this out, and I'm with you. So chill, right? And I was like, yeah. And it really took me through my week. You know what I mean? Like, I literally needed that. So anyway, sorry. I just had to say that.
No, that was good, yeah. It's a good perspective. And then all the kings were defeated. Now, here's the question. Listen, guys, we don't read the questions beforehand. We read them in real time.
Yeah, so we might not pull up this.
So we go over what the verses are, and then we like talk about them, and then we read the question. Here's the question: the sun standing still is often considered the most stunning. I'm gonna say one of the most stunning miracles of the Old Testament. What are your feelings on
Okay, the sun standing still is one of the most stunning. So I mean, I don't really know how things were working back then,
Yeah.
but I don't really consider that to be so. Like the parting of the Red Sea would have been more of a miracle in my opinion, right? Because I feel like how long are you really standing there to see the sun standing still,
Yeah.
right? Like that you notice it, but it could have been different back in the day. But I do think obviously it was a miracle.
Yeah.
But they're saying it's the most stunning miracle. I think a lot
I think
about
it's one of them.
one of them. Yeah, I feel like this. Here's my feelings on it. Haters will say it's fake. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things that's like God did this, and Joshua stood there and asked him to do it. And still sometimes people will be like, well, that's, either that's not possible or that's not what happened or that happened scientifically or, that's what appeared to have happened, but actually it was just your eyes playing a trick on you. Like, and that's why I say those are my feelings on it. Like, haters will say it's fake. Like, that's one of the great miracles. But there's miracles all around us that we don't really acknowledge and we don't really see. You kind of like, it's not as if you have to be looking for them, but you have to be kind of grateful for what you already have, and then you start to see things as miracles. So I think one of the best things about that miracle is that he had the audacity to ask God to have the sun stand still. Like, you know what I mean? So God will give you what you ask for if it's in his will, but that's a real miracle to me. It's like he sat there and asked him, like, okay, we need to defeat these folks, like, can you keep the sun right there for a bit? I just think that those are my feelings on it. The sun standing still is a great miracle, but it's so many miracles that we witness and that we've read that I feel like are even more outstanding. But who's to say? I know what I'm talking about. Maybe that was the best one there was. But my opinion is just that there were other ones that probably would have had me more in awe. But again, there's so many that if we would open our eyes and see them as miracles, miracles, they're all around us. So those are my feelings on it.
Yeah. So that's why I said one of.
Yeah.
Part of the Red Sea. I mean, you can even go back and talk about the fall of Jericho, where the walls came down with sound.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big.
That is a miracle.
I mean, I hear that in songs a lot, but I'm not nothing to take away from this miracle. I think miracles happen. I just don't think we're paying attention. I think miracles happen in us, people in our own lives, and people around us all the time. We just, that's how great God is. We just like what you said. You're right. I don't think we're paying attention.
To all the miracles.
Yeah, we're paying attention to things we can't control, and not paying attention to what's going on around us. Like, oh, that's nice that happened to that person. Anyway, my job. It's like, well, wait a minute. What that happened to that person is something that they could have been, dealing with, and God worked a miracle for them. So I think you're right. I think the sun standing still is just one of the many things of God's power. I think it's relative towards time. Like, we look at time as something that's fleeting, and it is. It goes by quick, but God doesn't look at time like that. I don't think time exists to God. I don't. I think it just exists with us. He is a being, a creator. He created time. Right? So he made the sun still, and it made the day stop. He made time stop. That's what it sounds like. That's maybe why they're saying it's a great miracle.
When you say he created time, Did he, or is that something that we created? I don't know. I know that what we refer to as time.
Yeah.
You know
He
what I'm
doesn't
saying?
look at time doesn't
He
exist.
created the world,
Yeah.
right? And we have created time.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, like,
well, think about it. If he created the world,
yeah,
he created us, we have a certain amount of time that we're on here.
Right, but everybody's is different. Nobody knows when theirs is up, so that's something that we decided.
It's always up, though.
It's always ticking up.
It's always ticking.
Right.
We can't
unless you're Benjamin Button or Angela Bassett or
Angela Bassett is real. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like the time is God is there's no construct of time to God because it doesn't. I don't think he
doesn't operate within time. Within our time structure. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, there it is.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like we're like, oh, I gotta be there in an hour, or whatever, and it's just like God doesn't work on your time schedule.
No,
and perhaps we've read about like, oh, so and so lived hundreds of years, and I often wonder, like, are those the years that we refer to now? Or were they something else back then, right? And then somewhere along the way, just like, I don't think they had daylight savings back then, right? Like somebody came along and made that a thing and people agreed with it. Or like summer vacation, like we didn't even have school. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So it's interesting to me that like, we create these like bylaws to live by, and I don't really know if God said this is a clock and now it's noon and now it's 4. You know what I mean? Like because that doesn't really mean anything as far as applying His principles. It's always be patient. It's not be patient for 346 minutes and 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? It's not that. It's like however long I say, however long it takes you to get this. Right? So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So anyway, go ahead.
And here's the thing. Remember when Moses went up to the mountain?
Yeah.
Once again, I think he was present with God, and God does not operate on the construct of human time.
Yeah.
So they're thinking he's gone for 40 days. He could have been up there for an inch. We don't know.
It could have felt like 5 minutes. It could have felt like an hour.
It could have felt like an hour.
You ever be like in a daze and you're looking at something on the wall or whatever, and then you could feel the outside happening around you, but it's just kind of like, wait a minute. I'm stuck, right? If that happens, and maybe he was like that. You know what else is funny? And this is just pure fiction, but I always think I think it's hilarious. Like there are times, like I know everybody felt this way about the year 2020 when we were all locked down in quarantine, but sometimes time moves really fast, sometimes time moves really slow. And like I remember, like it's just for instance, like being in school or sometimes being at work. And just kind of waiting. Oh my gosh! Like I'll take school for example because sometimes the workday goes by so quick, and I'd be like, "How's it 2:00?" and I haven't even gotten to these emails. But with school, I was consistent, like feeling that, like, okay, it's been 3:30 for 2 hours. Like, when is it going to be time for us to leave, right? And I feel like that sometimes about, and then I always feel like the hours between Friday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at midnight, they go by quickly. They go by more quickly than Monday morning type of thing, right? Like, so I'm thinking to myself, like, is that possible that sometimes, or like, how you get on a treadmill and that first 5 minutes feels like, not even the first 5 minutes.
What is the first?
The first like 3 minutes for me be feeling like 10. And it's like, I'm still on my, like, I'm still haven't gotten up to this, distance yet. So, or when you're doing like squats or something, the time just seems like it's not going fast. But then when you're, doing something leisurely, anyway, it goes on fast. But anyway, so that's just relative. Anyway,
that's why I'm telling you, man. Okay, Joshua 13-15. Land to be taken, and then he divides the east, the west, and then the allotments start. So remember, guys, the allotments are that. This is what we're going to go through. The allotments, which is 13 through 21, and it's basically all the tribes are now getting the land that God has promised. It's now they've done everything that God promises to Abram, and I mean I don't know how many years. Had to be because they were enslaved for what 300 or 400.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have those facts.
They were stuck in the wilderness for 40 years. That generation didn't even get to reach this promised land, including Moses. It's just been some time. Let's just say that. It's might have been some centuries, but they finally have made it. So the allotment is all the 12 tribes are getting the land that God has promised to Abraham and his people of Israel. So that's what basically that's what 13 through 21 is. So here's the question: the land that was taken from the descendants of Noah, who had turned to other gods, how are the wars for these lands justified? I can start out with that one.
Okay, go ahead.
We looked at this illustration by the Bible Project, and it broke it down where the Canaanites. So God didn't prompt. So you got to take everything not as literal. Some things you do, right? The alas, stoning, yes. But the driving out of the Canaanites is they took over their cities because of the rituals and practices the Canaanites and the Amorites and were doing that were against God's will, like the sacrificing of children,
the taking on of idols, but they were doing some like sexual things, I guess, that were and
they turned other gods, and I think God was like, okay, so that's kind of why the wars were justified, because it's necessarily like he picked these specific type of people because I think it was going totally against, what God had intended, So that's what I think. Like the sacrificing of children, the worshiping of the gods.
And you can only imagine what kind of thing was taking place if they're sacrificing children. Like, you don't get much worse than that. Like, that means nothing's off limits, in my opinion. That means you're doing whatever it is that you could think of to do.
Yeah.
And we already know that, like, the human mind can be really evil when left to its own devices. Yes. So you can only imagine the things that were being done to people. And if you're sacrificing children, that just means like nothing's sacred, like nothing's being protected. If you're not protecting the children, right, then nothing's off limits, and anybody's fair game to be abused or killed or whatever. So that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. Like,
how are the wars for these lands justified? Because everything was happening. Everything was.
You have no bounds, right? You have, like, there's no level of destruction if you start, sacrificing children. There's no level. Like, you are going beyond. There's no limits. Even.
I feel like I can't speak for everywhere because I haven't been everywhere, but even in some places that are considered to be like, rough places to come from. There are sets of rules in place that people who live there go by. Like, and I'm not talking about like all murderers go by, laws, but like I think there's certain codes in whatever environment you find yourself in that, like, we follow this code as long as you respect the process, or as long as you respect, the way we handle things, then everything will be on the up and up, or at least we'll respect you as long as you respect us. I feel like that's like the general theme. Of course there's people who act outside of boundaries, but I just think that in a land that they describe like this, where there isn't even like a god that's being held sacred, right? It's like there's no balance, there's no baseline level of respect and fellowship if you don't if you don't have a common ground of what respect is. So I can only imagine just the debauchery, right, and the evil that was taking place. I don't want to imagine it, but I can only imagine it, right? It seems like one of those scenes from the movie The Purge.
Man.
So anyway.
I've seen all of them, by the way. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is why I'm in the Bible, guys. All right, so Joshua 16 to 18, same thing. The allotment now is going for like Ephraim, Manasseh, and others. The other tribes are getting the allotments. Here's the question. What strikes you most deeply about this reading and why?
Okay, there's a couple of things I had highlighted. So, the sons of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim received their inheritance. I'm on 16, 4. So it talks about what they received. But then in 16:10, it's a couple things I'm going to point out here. In 16:10, it says they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites live among Ephraim to this day, and they became forced laborers. So originally, the whole point was to drive out the Canaanites because they were living, like we just talked about, how like they were living crazy. And they actually talked about that in the Bible Project too, where it's just like they didn't kill everybody. As we saw, we just listened to this last piece where the Gershonites, they spared their lives. Rahab got her life spared, so not everybody died. And then we hear about the people in Gezer. The Canaanites in Gezer were not driven out, but they became forced laborers. So I mean, that stood out to me because it's like, it's not like there's no hope for you, like we're killing and pillaging everyone. Like I feel like God saved some people who possibly repented at the last minute. Like maybe everybody in the land wasn't super evil. They were just going by the customs of their land, right?
Or like, not even that. Could have been like Rahab, like, hey man, y'all are just doing too much. Some people are just like, hey man, I'm not doing all that. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna fall back and So I think And
then the other thing that stood out to me was Zelophehad, the son of Hefer. Okay, so when we get down into Joshua 17:4, right? The women, Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, only daughters. And these are the names of his daughters. Mala, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They came before Eleazar, the priest, and before Joshua, the son of Nun, and before the leaders, and said, the Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers. So according to the command of the Lord, Joshua gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers. So thought that was dope. Like I always looked for these. I don't look for them. They stand out to me as we're reading these experiences of the women in the Old Testament, and I'm going to be looking. I mean, it's just something that it jumps out to me. I like this. I like the way that those women came forward and they were like, look, Moses said this, and we're coming to collect our inheritance. Please, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Here we are. And so I just feel like I love seeing that throughout history where where, oh, this is the norm, but these people, sort of stood up for themselves, and they got more than what was normal at the time because they said something. And I just feel like that's really cool to see that, like, just because things are happening a certain way around you and you feel like you don't have rights or a voice, if you stand up and ask for it, you can receive. You know what I'm saying? And God says that asking you shall receive. So I just appreciate those sorts of stories. That was probably the most thing that strikes me the most deeply as a woman.
Yeah.
Just seeing that, like, okay, these women, they didn't have any brothers, so they could have easily gotten looked over, but they were like, nah, we remember that. We need that land. Run me that.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
So how about you? Did you answer this one? You didn't answer this one yet.
Nah, what strikes me the most deeply about this reading? Okay. First, his reading was very interesting because it's like the Bible Project says, it's just a little interesting when there's no map. So it's describing these people, and there's no map for where they're gonna go. So that was just very interesting.
That was tough in reading this.
It was tough in reading.
I gotta put some more words to that.
Yeah.
When you're reading the Bible, you do have to have some patience because certain things are going to strike you when you're not really expecting them to. But you really got to stick with it, and some things are repetitive, and
Not
they say it over
stories,
and over. I'll tell you a couple of the things that did not, for this reading, it's really difficult to pronounce a lot of these words and names and places. I'm not saying it's really difficult, like it can't be done, but I found myself like struggling and kind of glazing over at times because I was like, I don't even know. Like if I'm going to read these and spell these all the way out, it's going to take me several hours. So like, not that we glazed over it, but there were just some things we just had to push through because it's not like I'm going to remember it, all. Like I'm just needing to get the first baseline of information so I can understand it. And then certain things did start to stick out to me. So I do appreciate that about the repetition. Later on, I recognized something that we have read because we have read it so many times and had repeated it so many times. I was like, oh, that's what this means. So it's good, the repetition, but I will say I struggled with some of the pronunciations. I struggled with the fact that we weren't looking at a map and they were describing like the inheritances, like where the borders were. And I'm pretty sure it's very important information because if somebody's telling you what land you own, you're gonna remember. You know what I'm saying? Oh, right out here by Bright Seat Road, all the way over to 301, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to remember what they say. You're going to remember exactly where it was. You're going to remember what streams are on your land, how many lakes, how many wooded areas. Like, you're going to remember when it's yours, So I appreciated that it's so detailed, but it had me lost at times. So, got to mention that. You're not alone. I only really wanted to mention it is because if you're reading this, and you're having some issues and struggles with, understanding where the boundaries and stuff were, like, so did we. So, that's all I mentioned it for.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I did highlight 1610. Because that was vital information. Because they didn't drive out all of the Canaanites, right? And it's just like... Okay, so not all of them were like bad and evil, because it does depict it like, man, they went super hard.
Yeah.
But I get it. God isn't. He's merciful.
Yeah, 1610, and then again in 1712.
Yeah.
It says the sons of Manasseh were not able to drive off all the inhabitants. And then again in 1618. So we're seeing it again and again,
Yeah, they're not driving them out. Those are the things that you say that if you read it over and over again, then it starts to get in detail.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they didn't drive everyone out, right?
Yeah.
I did highlight it's 17:15. And Joshua said to them, so basically, we're talking about the allotments, and some people were like, hey, we need more land. He said, if you're a numerous people, go up by yourselves to the forest, and there clear ground for yourselves in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. So, like, God gave you this land, now use it. If you think it's too narrow, you still have this land over here that you just have to, be able to cultivate it. So that's what this is about. I read in the study notes where it says they were given this land and they had to figure out how to cultivate it. So that's what Joshua was saying, like, you have all this land. You have to be able to cultivate it for you. God just gave you this land. You got to make use of it. So, if you got lemons, make lemonade, I guess. That's the thing.
Yeah, maybe there's something about that land that's better than the other land. Yeah, it's like how you look at it, right?
Yeah, like God gave it to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, here. Well, it's too narrow. No, it's not. You still have this.
Clear out the forest, right?
Clear out.
Yeah.
So, because I was wondering, it just stood out to me. Like, he's saying, go clear it out. And then I read it and was like, oh, okay. So, all right. Joshua 19 through 21. The same thing. So this is the allotments for Simeon, Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, Dan, Joshua, and they talk about the cities of refuge and the Levites.
Yeah.
So the cities of refuge, once again, the cities of refuge is a place. So somebody is considered like manslaughter or murder. They go to a place where they're not judged by the people, or they're not, killed. It's just a city for inhabitants that, you have to wait until the priest gathers all the information, looks at everything, and then you can,
It's like innocent before proven guilty.
Yeah, really though.
Yeah, so even to this extent that you can go somewhere and just be safe while we figure this thing out, so that nobody's trying to like retaliate on you. We hear a lot about that in our culture, especially like in places.
It's just like going to a different neighborhood. It's not like going to jail or prisons. You have everything.
Yeah,
you can get up when you want to.
You still have your freedom.
You have your freedom.
You just go away for a bit while we figure out, we do the investigation.
It's like, go use a city, for example. It's like, instead of you're in Brooklyn, now you got to just go to, and it's no shout to any city. I don't, just saying go to Long Island. That's all the city of refuge is. It's just a place. It's the same exact living situation. It's just you're not around the towns people. You're not around the city, so you can, because what happens is people don't know, and people automatically judge you without even having the facts. So this place is just a safe space. Keeps everybody safe.
Yeah, because you know how people gossip. Oh, you heard what happened to the Jones?
Yeah, you don't know. It's like
that Jones boy. Yeah. He went down there and he his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's
like you don't even know what happened. When people know you, they kind of do that, right? Yeah. But if that guy had gone over to the next city of refuge, then nobody would know who he was. It's just like, oh, he's just a visitor. So he can like live his life until they find out what actually happened, and then it's like, okay, then they can come back.
This is awesome. And then the Levites, which we were talking, the Levites were given land.
Right.
They were given, Bazee pointed that out.
Yeah, because originally their inheritance was God, right? Yep. It's just like, listen, you're not one of the Israelites. You weren't promised land, like the Israelites were promised.
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to journey with them. You're able to like help with the packing and the journeying of the things for the tabernacle. But your inheritance is the Lord, which is great. That's the good enough inheritance. Then they ended up getting actual land out based out of the like what I'm saying. It's like one of those perks when you have a rich friend. You know what I mean? Like, hey, or you have somebody, you got the hookup. So that's what that is.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very cool.
Very cool.
Because they went through a lot of the same stuff as they traveled with the Israelites. So they saw all of the same things. And, you can't travel with somebody like that and not get close to them, I would think.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're one of them. So I thought that was cool that they ended up getting land too.
Yeah. Not only that, guys, remember who the Levites are. When Moses went for the Ten Commandments and he came back and they were worshiping a golden calf. The Levites were on the side of Moses, and then they also God charged them with taking care of the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant. So that's what they do. So it's just kind of a natural thing that if you're taking this, they have the most important job. All right, the tabernacle has to be cleaned. They're priests. I think most of the Levites were priests. So that's what they were. Their culture is based around God, the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle. So it just makes sense that they would have their own land and possessions.
Yeah, they had their own cattle and stuff. So you gotta have land to do that.
Yeah.
So what is the
Here's
question?
The question. God told the people he would go before them and fight. Why was it important for them to fight for the land they would own?
All right, I have a twofold for that one.
Okay, good.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
All right, the first one is I'll start with the answer that I think is what I read in here. It's important for you to go and fight because it proves to you that God's got your back. There was a point in there where they got defeated, or seemed like they got defeated at first, but then they went back and found out that one of the Israelites had stolen something or taken something that they weren't supposed to, and that's why they were weakened, because one of them did not follow God's laws. Now, that was the only time that I read that they were defeated, but they were only defeated for a second. I think that, and then they did what they needed to do. They cleaned house, and then they went and they were victorious. I think that God's telling us in this, what I'm getting from this is that sometimes you might even be fearful. You might feel like you're outnumbered. You might feel like people are, the battle is bigger than you are. You're outnumbered, or it's just overwhelming, or what have you. But it's important for you to go and fight anyway, because that's what God promised you, and He's gonna take you through. He's gonna be with you, but you have to just have faith. And so I think the fighting was the having faith, right? Like, you're not gonna embark in a battle with somebody unless you want to win. You don't enter a battle to get beat up. So I think embarking on that is a step of faith, because it's like we're just gonna believe that God is with us. And we see different things that God did. Number one, that the hail that we talked about, He sent the hail, which you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, God does that. The sun standing still is another thing. There was another one that I don't know if we talked about last week, but it was really quite interesting about how they had this strategy of going in and it was after Jericho, right? And I think we did talk about it, but they went in, they set up shop in the back, so that everybody came out of the city like, yeah, let's get them, right? And then they didn't realize that they were getting cornered from another side. So everybody left the city, and then they set their city on fire. And it's just like, why did you leave your city unmanned? Because you were just, I guess, so arrogant to think that you were going to win this, but that wasn't the Israelites. The Israelites were the victors. So that's the first reason I think that you have to fight for the land, because you have to know for sure, like, God's showing you that, like, I'm with you regardless, and see how I won you all these battles. Like, you're gonna remember that, right? And you remember that I'm God and I did that for you. The other reason is a reason that I just, in my experience, when you give someone something that they didn't ask for or fight for, sometimes they don't value it, and it's just another thing that they have, right? It's just something that they don't appreciate, right? And they don't know, they don't have a purpose for it, right? And so a lot of times when you have to fight for something, or when you have to work for something, when you have to sacrifice for something, you hold it more dearly. Or even sometimes when you have to ask for something, because that can be hard for a lot of us. I know it's hard for me. I don't like to ask people for other things. I'd rather just go get it myself. So when you have to ask for something, you kind of have to be vulnerable. You have to express your need for it, or at least you are having a conversation with yourself to say, like, yeah, this is really important and I need it. So you kind of humbled in that moment, because you're like, I have to, I need this thing, right? Enough to where I'm going to ask for it. And I think that's a reason why people should fight for or work for things, because they'll appreciate it. Whereas if it's given to them, they might not. So that's my reason.
That's good. That's really two good answers. Why is it important for them to fight for the land they will own? So I'm going to go with your first one. I agree with you. Faith without works is dead. Like, if God gives you something, well, no matter what, if you have a gift, you have a purpose, you're gonna have to be obedient, right? But you're gonna have to work for it. It's not like, from what I've read, you're gonna have to work what God has given you. He says it all the time, like, I'm gonna give you this, but you're gonna have to work. Moses wasn't a good speaker. He had to work to become. Right? We'll go, Noah wasn't a builder. He had to build the ark. God didn't build the ark. He provided the supplies. But you have to be able to have work. Joseph learned about trust and patience. Right? I'll go. Here's another one, and it's not just physical work, right? But this is talking about physical. But let's even go to Jacob. Stop running away. Trusting God, right? He ended up working for 16 years. Is it 16 years?
I can't remember. I want to say it was 16 years.
16, 8
Yeah, because he worked for Leah. He worked for Rachel and then Leah. I want to say it was 16 years.
Right, about 16 years he had to work. Right? So there's just things that you're going to have to be able to get it on your own. And then, while you're getting it on your own, you get to trust God more. Right? So if God says, you know what, you're going to be, let's say, you're going to be the best artist, right? And you start, and you keep working for it, and you keep working for it, and then you fight for it, and you do what you have to do, and you trust God. And then He gives it to you. Just like you said, not only are you going to appreciate it, but you're going to trust God. So that's the whole point of fighting for it. If I promise you something and you work towards what I promised you, and you trust me and I give it to you, you're always going to trust me. Or you're going to trust me more because I delivered it to you. But you're going to have to work for it. Now, because you worked for it, and I delivered it for you, just like I promised, you'll trust and be more obedient with me.
Yeah.
You're going to trust me more because you've seen what I can do and I hold my promises.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta wake up and work. But
yeah, or else you just kind of be waiting for something to happen.
Or you're gonna be like you're just gonna be waiting, and it's like what is that? But I think that's the question, right? That's why it's important to fight.
Yeah.
Right? Because here's the verse. Verse 21:43. Thus the Lord gave to Israel all the land he swore that he gave to their fathers. They took possession of it, and they settled there. 44. And the Lord gave them rest on each side that he swore to their fathers. Not one of their enemies had withstood them, for the Lord had given all their enemies into their hands. 45. Not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the houses of Israel had failed. If
all had come to pass.
If I promise you this, and you do what I say in obedience, and you trust me, and you fight, and you work through it, and you push through all those things. Let's say you push through those insecurities, you push through your ego, you push through everything. You learn that skill, and you keep trusting me, and then everything you ask for, you shall receive. But you have to trust and work for it.
Yeah.
If not, you'll be okay. I'll be okay. God.
Yeah, God will be fine.
Will you?
But will you?
So that's a good note to end it. That's a great to end it on.
Well, I just want to, I thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to Miss Damita Jo.
Yeah.
As I always do. It's like the same shout outs. I do want to give other shout outs this week though. Mm-hmm. Last week I gave a shout out to posthumous folks. This week I want to give a shout out to people who are pouring into our lives whether they know it or not. I'm going to go there with David Shands and Donnie Wiggins. Yeah. We watch them a lot, and
shout out, man.
I've been watching them for over a year now, and sometimes I just assume that everybody watches them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then when I really think about it, it's like, well, maybe somebody that I know doesn't even know about who they are, and it would be so beneficial. It's so beneficial to me to listen to their conversations, to be exposed to the people that they are exposing us to through their interviews and through their just conversations and through social media. So I mean, this is one of the reasons why social media is so cool, because I feel like we both have talked about this, how we feel like we are a part of their circle just because we watch and listen to them, and we have so many similar thoughts, right? Like we're on the same wavelength of thought, and it's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I would have thought, or that's exactly what I would have said, or there's a different perspective, what about this one, right? So I just feel like social media is real cool for that point, because they're all the way, I think, in Atlanta, and we're up here in the DMV, and we probably would never have met them if not for social media. So so I think that's cool. But shout out to David Shands and Donnie Wiggins and the whole Social Proof team. You know what? Shout out to Joe, because Joe takes a lot. He takes a lot, guys. I feel like y'all be calling him out, and I'm sure he's a strong guy, but I shout out to Joe. You know what? This shout out is for you, Joe. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for sharing parts of your life that other people might shy away from. And you know what? I really appreciate you, Joe. That's what I want to say. Shout out to Joe. But shout out to Donnie and Shands too. I nicknamed them Shanny. I know they're not going to like that. They don't even know who we are. But I nicknamed them Shanny because it makes me laugh. Like, who you listen to? Shanny? Shands and Donnie. So anyway, but yeah, shout out to the whole Social Proof team. That's what I'm shouting out this week.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. Man. Of course, I'm gonna shout out Yes, I'm a Unicorn. Always. I'm a shout out fourth quarter. We're actually, guys, this is going to be season 2, but we're breaking down our 32 NFL teams. So it's going to be pretty cool. Because, sports is really, sports is always stuff going on. But right now, everybody's preparing for the NFL season. So we're just going to break that, break that down. It's just cool. You know what? I'm gonna shout out our church, man, United Baptist.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Pastor Pope and First Lady Myron, Sharif,
and
Damien, and
Joy,
and
Tucson. Yeah, our whole gang over there, our whole crew.
Yeah, so just shout out to that, and Dave and Donnie's really good at listening to them.
Who else do you listen to? Who adds value to your day when you're listening? Who do you look to add value?
I listen to Jim Rohn.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as like people who are alive, because we talked about them last week.
Oh, people that are alive.
Like people who you just like we listen to Shans and Donnie.
Myron Golden. I'm always gonna shout him out.
Obviously. But like, who's that other podcast you be listening to that had Kevin Hart on there this week?
Oh yeah, shout out to the Pivot. I really like what they're doing, and I Am Athlete. Shout out to them too. I listen to them, both of them a lot because it's old media is calling it new media. It's just media. It's just from a different perspective. And as a fan, I do like to listen to NFL players from their perspective and not Sports Center's perspective. Because from they're the athletes living it and they're playing on the field.
Yeah.
We're just watching them display their greatness and their God-given abilities.
Yeah.
So I like the Pivot. Pivot had Kevin Hart, and Mike Tyson on there. Shout out to Mike Tyson, man. He's grown different. You got his journey and pathway is a lot different than what was expected of when he first started out. So
Okay, sorry. This is one last shout out, and it might seem silly to people, but I have to give the shout out to Beyonce. Thank you for sharing your gift, and thank you for this wonderful new album that I'm enjoying. And sometimes people don't recognize like people sharing their gift, but I can appreciate just also the camaraderie of all the fans. Like we've been so excited this whole weekend, and I just appreciate that. So thanks, Beyonce. You're probably never gonna see this, but shout out to you.
Yeah.
Okay, that wraps up another episode of Is It Crazy Music? Oh, sorry.
Wait, we gotta do what we're gonna talk about next week.
Next week we're gonna be reading
Joshua 22 to 24.
So that ends Joshua. We're on to another book. Okay.
This is going by fast.
This is going by.
And then we're going to start on Judges, which is interesting. I'm just looking at the layout. I guess it's just, I don't know what it's about, but we'll find out.
So we'll do Joshua 22 through the end of it, and then we'll do Judges 1 through 8.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about next week.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, remember, don't take our word for it. Go to the source. Read your Bible.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much. For watching. Peace.